देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जगद्गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की। हरे कृष्णा। सो आज परम पवित्र दिन है।
Hare Krishna. So it's a very auspicious day today. In the last session, we have had seen the appearance day of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and upon this day today, we are celebrating Jagannath Mission Festival. Just as in Braj, at the house of Sri Nanda Baba, Krishna appeared, and there was a huge celebration at the house of Nand Maharaj. In a similar manner, at Nadia in Sridham, Mayapur, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared on Gaur Purnima day, and today, huge celebrations were going on. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Lord Shri Krishna and Radharani combined.
एक आत्मा दो रूप सो त्रिकाल में लीला करे। एक आत्मा दो रूप सो त्रिकाल में लीला करे। वही राधा कृष्ण अब श्री चैतन्य वपु धरे। वही राधा कृष्ण अब श्री चैतन्य वपु धरे। श्री राधा भाव व कांति युक्त, श्री राधा भाव व कांति युक्त, यह श्री कृष्ण को स्वरूप है। प्रेम प्रभु वंदन करो, यह गौर रूप अनूप है। सो ऐसा गौर रूप धारण किए हुए श्री
Gauranga Mahaprabhu appeared in the golden form yesterday, and today we are celebrating Jagannath Mishra festival. In the last session, you see, we heard that how on the Falgun Shukla day of Purnima, Srila Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared, and with that, continuous Harinam went on. You see, the festival Holi had been celebrated for millions of years, but on the day of appearance of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Holi of Sri Harinam Kirtan was celebrated. On one hand, where we had these invaders and attackers, where we had the rule of Mughals, and just in those opposite circumstances, challenging circumstances, the Holi of Sri Harinam was initiated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Harinam and the Kirtan did have its mention in the Shastras, but how that Kirtan and Harinam is to be done was established by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And this is what he taught us, that how do we need to engage ourselves in Kirtan and Harinam. So, on the day of Purnima, which was yesterday, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared, and just on the same day, this has been mentioned about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, something like what is there on your right-hand side of the screens.
तामीश लौकिकमपि तामीश चेष्टया बलितान्तराम चेष्टया बलितान्तराम। श्री कृष्णदास कविराज गोस्वामी चैतन्य
Sri
चरिता
Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in Chaitanya Charitamrut says something like this: I offer my obeisances, I offer my pranam to Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the childish pastimes of who Chaitanya Mahaprabhu steals the heart, who mesmerizes the heart by his pastimes of the childhood times. Though Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or his pastimes of the younger times might appear just of this material world, but interestingly, even if it might appear materialistic and of this world, but still, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes is nothing but the pastimes of the Lord, and that is the reason that they are great. They are divine, and such divine pastimes are getting evident in the courtyard of Shachi. So Nimai was born just a day before, and you see, as a child is born, he is dependent upon mother's milk. But interesting and surprising is the fact that even though Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared on 13th month, but he was not accepting milk. Mother wasn't able to feed him with her milk. The child was not ready to accept the milk. Everyone was shocked and worried how would the child survive if he does not feed himself on mother's milk. And this is at this point of time that Sri Jagannath Mishra reached and approached Advait Acharya. Now, as Advait Acharya appears and arrives at the home of Jagannath Mishra and Shachi, Advait Acharya took the child, the Nimai, into his hands and went at a little secluded place in the house of Shachi. And imagine a child which is just 1 day old is speaking to Advaita Acharya. Now, Advaita Acharya said, why don't you consume milk? Why don't you feed yourself on milk? Now, Nibai said, I cannot accept the milk because my mother is not a Vaishnava. Now, Advaita Acharya said, how come you say that your mother is not a Vaishnava? I have already offered Gopal Mantra to your mother. To this, Nimai said that first initiation is with Hare Krishna Mahamantra and not with the second mantra, which is Gopal Mantra. You have skipped the first stage of initiation of Mahamantra, and that is the reason I refuse to feed on milk. So must you go and offer Hare Krishna Mahamantra, first initiation of Shachi Mataji. Now Advait Acharya reached to Shachi Mataji and offered her Hare Krishna Mahamantra, first initiation, and he chanted Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And in this manner, just as Shachi Maharani got the first initiation of Mahamantra,
जी सची मैया लाला को दूध पिलावे, बार बार मुख चूम लेत है, बार बार मुख चूम लेत है। निरख निरख सुख पावे सची मैया लाला को दूध पिला। तो माता शची इस प्रकार से
So in this manner, Mata Shachi went on to breastfeed her Nimai, who is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Dear devotees, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right from day one, he took the vow of initiation, Harinam Kirtan, etc. Now you see what happens. After having been fed on the mother's milk, he started weeping and crying. As Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was weeping, mother usually started humming certain sounds. So Shachi Maharani started making some humming sounds for the Nimai. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard this humming sound, he was astonished and he started weeping with more of the intensity and sound. That what kind of humming sound is his mother making? Now, Shachi Mataji was extremely worried that how come the child is still crying. Now, the neighbors came, people from nearby houses came, and they did make humming sounds, but none of them were able to make the child, the Nimai, quiet. Now, just at this point of time, one of the females said, "Oh, Hari, when shall he be quiet?" Just as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard the name of Hari, the child or Nimai was quiet. Now again they said Hari, and the child went quiet and stopped crying. Now everyone realized that if we would speak Hari, the child would remain quiet and not weep. And that is how everyone started chanting the name of Lord Hari. So as everyone engaged in chanting the name of Hari, the young Nimai started smiling and laughing. The child who had been weeping for so long, but as he heard the name of Hari, he started smiling and laughing. The formula that everyone arrived at was that just as Nimai goes on to weep, we must chant the holy name, and the child would become happier. So, upon these pious day of appearance days of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and in order to get the blessing of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we must chant the holy name of the Lord. So to seek the blessings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we don't need to establish daunting tasks, but rather only chant the holy name of the Lord. So we must engage in some kirtan to get the blessings and mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Until we engage ourselves in Sankirtan and Harinam, we would not be able to have mercy and blessings of the Lord. So you see, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Lord of dancing and Kirtan. Until and unless we dance before Him, until and unless we sing before Him, until and unless we chant the holy name before Him, we will not be able to get His mercy. And you see, today is the festival of dancing. If we won't dance today, when shall we dance? It is the day of colors. It is the festival of wonderful colors. See, which celebrates Holi for almost a month. There is also Latmar Holi. Even Srimati Radharani and Sri Krishna celebrates Holi with a lot of heart. You see, applying colors on somebody is just a very shallow aspect. Holi actually means exchange of love. Srimati Radharani and Sri Krishna, in a very wonderful mode of love, used to exchange love between them. Let us now engage in some kirtan and singing some verses of holy. Let us celebrate.
ऐसे नलिनी महाराज माता जी सदैव कथा सुनते हैं और निरंतर सेवा में लगे रहते हैं। ये जो विग्रह है कथा के दौरान हमने नामकरण किया था।
That we have before us,
આપણામાં ક્યાં ગરી ગયો? तो ये जो विग्रह है श्री राधा गिरधारी कार्तिक महीने में नामकरण हुआ और माताजी बहुत सुंदर राधा गिरधारी जी की सेवा कर रही हैं। और साथ ही साथ अमेरिका बाल्टीमोर से श्री सुरभि माताजी जिन्होंने बहुत सुंदर आज सहयोग प्रदान किया है। आइए आज षष्ठ दिवस की यात्रा को हम आगे बढ़ाए।
Shri Radha Girdhari. So let us now move forward on the 6 days Katha. But before we do that, you see, we were eagerly waiting forward for the appearance day of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and we all celebrate the appearance day of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Also, we were looking forward to seek the mercy and blessings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and we have been engaged in doing Parikrama also. And many of you, on the pious occasion of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance day, many of us have been also engaged in offering Abhishekam to Sri Gaur Nitai. So many of you have engaged in devotional service, the service to Gaur Mata, and also Abhishekam. Let us have a glimpse of such services for a short while and try to immerse yourself in the name of the Lord. Let us now have darshan of Abhishekam and see all those who have offered their services, beautiful services, and we shall move towards the Katha of the 6th day.
जय। अभिषेक का प्रारंभ होने जा रहा है। Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare ईश्वर परमा कृष्ण सच्चिदानंद विग्रह अनादि आदि गोविंद सर्व कारण कारणम चिंतामणि प्रकर सद्मसुकल्प वृक्ष लक्षावृतेषु सुरभिरभिपालयन्तम् लक्ष्मी सहस्र शत संभ्रम सेव्यमानम् गोविन्दमादि पुरुषं तमहं भजामि वेणुक्वणन्तमरविन्दतलायताक्षं बर्हावतं समसितां बुधसुन्दराङ्गम् कंदर्पकोटिकमनीय विशेषशोभं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि आलोलचन्द्रकलसदन् माल्यवंशी अद्वैतमच्युतमनादिमनन्तरूपम् आद्यं पुराणपुरुषं नवयौवनं च वेदेषु दुर्लभमात्मभक्तो गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि पन्थास्तु कोटिशतवत्सरसम्प्रगम्यो वायोरथापि मनसो मुनिपुङ्गवान् नवगौरवरं नव पुष्कशरं नवभावधरं नव लास्यपरं नवगौरवरं नवहास्यकरं नव हेमवरं नव प्रणमामि सचीसुत गौरवरं नव प्रेमयुतं नव नीतशुचं नववेशकृतं नव प्रेमरसं नव प्रेमयुतं नववेश कृतं नव नवदा विलासत शुभ प्रेममयं नवदा विलासत शुभ नवदा विलासत शुभ प्रेममयं नवदा विलासत शुभ प्रणमामि सचीसुत गौरवरम् हरि भक्ति परम हरि नामधरम करजाप्यकरम हरि नाम परम हरि भक्ति हरि नामधरम करजाप्यकरम हरि नाम परम नयने सततं प्रणयाश्रुधरं नयने सततं प्रणयाश्रुधरं नयने सततं प्रणयाश्रुधरं नयने सततं प्रणयाश्रुधरं प्रणमामि सचीसुत गौरवरम् प्रणमामि सचीसुत गौरवरम् सततं जनता भव तापहरं परमार्थपरायण लोकगतिं सततं जनता भव तापहरं परमार्थपरायण नवलेहकरं जगत्तापहरं नवलेहकरं जगत्तापहरं नवलेहकरं जगत्तापहरं जयो जयो गौरा चांदे आरतिक शोभा की बदक्षी ताई चांद बामे गदाधर की बबोसी याचे गौरा चांद रत्न सिंहासने आरती करेन ब्रह्मा आदिदेव गणे की बनोरो हरि आदि करी चामर डुलाय संजय मुकुंद वासु घोषयादि गाय की बशंख बाजे घंटा बाजे बाजे કરતાલ બહુ કોટી ચંદ્રજીની બદન ઉજ્જવલ કિવ શિવ શુક નારદ પ્રેમે ગદગદ જય શ્રી કૃષ્ણ ચૈતન્ય પ્રભુ નિત્યાનંદ હરે કૃષ્ણ 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 હરે 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 રામ 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 હરે 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 કૃષ્ણ 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 હરે 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 રામ 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 હરે 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 કૃષ્ણ 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 હરે 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 રામ 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 हरे हरे। मैं धन्यवाद दूंगा आप सभी भक्तों का जिन्होंने बड़े भाव से बड़े
I
उत्साह से
extend my heartfelt gratitude to each one of the devotees and Vaishnavas out here who have contributed and participated in this beautiful seva.
आपके पास अनेक
So you see, there might be many alternatives available to each one of you for the sevas, but the fact that you chose this particular alternative, I offer my obeisances to your mood, to your commitment and devotion.
विशेष धन्यवाद करूंगा।
Especially, I extend my thanks to Amit Narayan Prabhu because you see, a lot of time, energy, and commitment is needed to organize such sevas. This is always beautifully organized by Amit Narayan Prabhu. May Lord bless him with all the mercy and blessing and award each one of you pure devotional service.
हम सब लोग मिलजुल कर करते रहे।
I would pray that each one of us, in a very united manner, together, continue to serve the Lordships.
हम सब
We all
गौर मंडल परिक्रमा के दौरान
are engaged in Gaur Mandal Parikrama.
के दौरान गोद्रुम
So during this Navdeep Yatra, we have reached Godrum Deep. Today is the day 6th.
पहुंचे हैं, मतलब एवरेज
And you see, we are just still on an average in the third day.
क्योंकि फेस्टिवल भी हो चुका है।
So you see, the average speed is pretty
दिन
less.
में ज्यादा रन बनाने हैं।
So we need to score more runs, a lesser number of balls, isn't it? So we really need to complete the entire parikrama. So we would certainly pick up on a faster pace.
सब लोग
As of now, we are in Godrum Deep and a particular place.
स्थान है।
This is a very divine place, and this place is called as Suvarna Vihar. So we are right now at Suvarna Vihar.
अब देखो कितनी हरियाली है और गोविंद
You see what a luscious greenery is in the surroundings, and Govind TV has organized such a view that even if you might have been there physically, you would not have been able to see it. You can only see it through the camera. You see, you need to have a helicopter, which perhaps would not have been possible.
सहयोग से आज
You see, the host family and the organizers, we all are indebted to their efforts. So we're able to have such wonderful, blissful experience through their efforts.
पहला द्वीप अंतरद्वीप
First dweep was Antardweep, second one being Simant, and the third one being Godrum Deep. So these three islands. So we are at Godrum Island.
कीर्तन भक्ति को प्रतिपादित करता है।
Now you see, Godrum Deep is symbolic of Kirtan Bhakti.
सुवर्ण विहार
Within this Godrum Deep, we have this beautiful, blissful place called Suvar.
सरस्वती नदी के दक्षिणी तट पर स्थित है।
It is situated on the southern bank of river Saraswati.
स्थित है और उस सरस्वती नदी को आज वहां पर जलांगी नदी के रूप में जाना जाता है।
Saraswati river is known as Jalangini river these days in Godrum Deep.
यहाँ पर जो घटना घटी ये
The events which took place here is an event of the age of Satyug. There used to be a great king in Satyug by the name of
सुवर्ण सेन
Suvarna Sen. So Suvarna Sen was a king in Satyug here.
सेन राजा को नारद मुनि ने उपदेश दिया और किस प्रकार
Suvarna Sen was given a lecture by Sri Naradji, and how Suvarna Sen went on to have darshans of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and engaged himself in devotional service towards the Lord. So this story is being narrated by Nityanand Prabhu to Jeev Goswami.
ये सतयुग में महाराज सुवर्ण सेन का जो महल था
The pillars that you just saw on the screen are the remains of the palace of Suvarnasen. And this is the inside view of the temple, the vigrahas that you just watched. So Sri Nityanand Prabhu is narrating this event in such a manner. Let us focus on the verse on the top right hand side on your screen. How a king of the age of Satyug, having freed himself from the material life, transforms himself into a devotee, is what is being narrated by Nityanand Prabhu. So this verse can actually be sung in, in different ragas. But you see, if I would engage in the different ragas, you see, we would fall so much short of time. So I would just sing in one or two particular ragas.
राजा सबे जाने श्री सुवर्ण सेन तार नाम श्री सुवर्ण सेन तार नाम बहुकाल राज्य केल परे ते वार्धक्य हेल तबु नाही कार्ये ते विश्राम तबु नाही कार्ये ते विश्राम। ये तो हो गई एक ट्यून, अब दूसरी ट्यून भी बता दूं आपको।
Let me now sing it in another raga for you.
सतयुग ये स्थाने शील राजा सबे जाने श्री सुवर्ण सेन तारना आम बहुकाल राज्य केल परे ते वार्धक्य हेल तबु नाही कार्ये ते विश्राम। હવે આવા 30 શ્લોક છે। હવે આવું બધું ગાવા જાવ તો આ બધું પાર આવે હે, પછી આપણે આ ત્રીજા દ્વીપમાં જ બધું પતાવવું પડે। तो गाने का तो बहुत मन कर रहा है क्योंकि बहुत सुंदर भाव में।
See, I feel like singing this verse in different ragas, but I feel so much short of time. Many of you I know are of the feel that I should sing, but I would say you should actually sing it, and I would rather narrate the katha. So the story of 30 shlokas, the entire life story, and I want to place a request before you that this story is being narrated about Shri Satya Singh, but you see, this is the event and story of each one of us. So I request each one of you to relate yourself to Shri Satya Singh. So this is the narration of the story of each one of us. So let us hear to the story. Lord Nityanand says that in the age of Satyug, at the same place, O Jeev, it was the time of Satyug, and at this particular place, O Jeev, at this particular place in Gotram Deep, at a place called Suvarna Vihar. So at this place in Satyug, there used to be a king who was known by the name of Suvarna Sen. He was known to every person. So he was a very famous and well established name. So such a well-known, renowned king was by the name of Suvarna Sen. He ruled his empire for a huge number of years. And as he continued to rule, he approached his elderly ages. He reached the first stage of his life. So, as I told you earlier, it is not the story of Sri Suvarna Sen, rather, it's the story of each one of us. So, discharging his responsibility as a king and ruling as a king, he reached the first stage of his life. Don't you also feel that discharging your responsibilities, huge time passed by? So, Sri Suvarna Sen went on to rule for a huge number of years and discharging his responsibility as a king, he approached his ripe age and his body became too weak and old. But the point to be noted is, even though his body had grown old, but his mind and heart was still very, very young.
लेकिन स्वर्ण सेन
So
राजा
actually, in the final stages of life, one must engage in devotional service. But then this particular king, Suvarna Sen, was not knowing any rest so far. Dear devotees, the counting, the numbers who has created, has also wonderfully created the system. For example, when 49 is approached, after that you approach 50 number. So in 49th year, as you reach and you complete your 50 years of your age, so after 50, 50 years, what you reach is 51, which is called as Ikavan, which has a one that is forest. So it is an indication that after 50 years of life, you must hand over whatever you have to your next generation and make a move towards the forest life. Our sages and saints have also gone on to teach this to us.
जीवन में बहुत पैसे कमाए जितना हमें करना था हमने
So throughout entire life, you might have earned a lot and you have discharged all your responsibilities with huge commitment. But you see, what you must remember is that at some particular points of time, one must withdraw, one must abandon, one must give up on a particular time. So, what you must remember, much before the time, the force of time takes away everything from you, you must learn how to withdraw, abandon, and give up upon things. So, what is happening over here is that this king had been discharging his responsibilities with utmost energy and commitment. But even in the right age, he is not withdrawing and giving up on things. He is not ready to retire. So, what happens further is explained in the shloka on the right hand side of your screen. So, that is why I am telling you that you must listen to this katha, keeping yourself at the center. Try to identify yourself and search for yourself here.
उस महाराज सत्य
से feel that you can very well identify yourself with this king. The mind and heart of this particular king was too much engaged in materialistic desires and responsibilities. And
बढ़ाऊं,
what was further the desire in his heart? His only desire was how can he go on to enhance and increase his wealth and his kingdom. So the desire that he had in his mind was how to multiply his wealth. Now, dear devotees, imagine he had so much of wealth, but still he was engaged in this particular thought how to
ज्यादा पैसे होते ना वो तो
multiply his wealth. And dear devotees, we have seen that all those who have huge wealth actually are on the mode of dieting. So, where would you take all this money and what would you do is a big question. And unfortunately, this king, despite having so much of things with him, was engaged in the only desire and thought that how he can multiply his wealth. I'm so glad that Baldev Bhai has retired from active professional life. And you see, I have been a witness to many a people, but what Baldev Bhai has done is exemplary. What a splendid business he has in US. But then he abandoned everything and gave up everything and now is engaged in complete devotional service.
तुम्हें समय नहीं बिताना चाहिए, बहुत अच्छी बात है। अब छोड़ा उसने, टेंशन मुझे है कि अब ये जीवन इसका ठीक से चले, आगे
You
बढ़े।
see, it is he who has given up, but I'm quite worried that his life should go on smoothly. Anyhow, moving further, the mind and heart of Surya Sen was engaged only in the multiplying of his wealth and that of his kingdom. So, in this particular mode, this particular king was always engaged in the thought of increasing his wealth and property. So, in this manner, he was entangled in this material world. However, one day, a wonderful thing happened. So, in a way, try to understand that this king actually was almost right on the way to hell because he has not engaged himself in devotional service. But you see, one day, one beautiful thing happened. So it so happens that just in case, maybe the pure deeds of the previous birth or some service that you might have offered to Vaishnavas in this life, some change does come across our lives. And that is the reason in the third line of the shloka, Nityanand Prabhu says that the king was perhaps not aware, but this was his destiny. This was his luck. What was his luck? What was his destiny? That a saint like that of Sri Naraji appeared at his place.
પણ સંતનું આગમન જ્યારે જીવનમાં થાય ત્યારે જીવનમાં વૈરાગ્ય તરફ આગળ વધીએ। હું તમે કથા સાંભળીએ છે ને, આ કથા એક દિવસ કંથા નો પહેરાવી દે તો મારું નામ ભૂલી જજો। कथा किसके लिए? कंथा माने कोपिन, लंगोट। आज भले आराम से हम सुन रहे, मौज कर रहे हैं, लेकिन ये कथा सुनते 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 इतना प्रेम बढ़ता है कि कथा प्रेरणा देती है। छोड़ो इन सब को।
That today we are engaged in listening to this katha, but over a period of time you get so much of obsession and attachment from the material world that you would want to abandon everything for it. But this shall happen only when a son or a sadhu appears in your life. And you see, a very wonderful philosophy is being talked about in the third line. You see, we are in the tradition of Naraji. So, either Naraji or any other saint of Narad Parampara would appear in the life and place of such people who would have some or the other great association or deep associated with him at some point of time. And you see, Sri Naraji appears in the life of Sri Suvarna Singh. And now the king welcomed Sri Naraji with all his heart and devotion. Dear devotees, let us now try to understand what the company of a sadhu is capable of bringing about. Now you need to see the transformation that the company of a sadhu can bring in your life. Let us now focus upon the shloka that we have on our screens now.
इस संसार में
In this world, whenever a saint or a sadhu goes on to have a look at a materially inclined person, there develops huge kindness in the mind and heart of such a sadhu. So Naraji developed the feel of kindness towards the king, and out of this kindness which developed in his heart, you see, a true saint, when he develops true kindness towards some person, how that kindness gets exhibited is exhibition of the elementary knowledge. Because the true fact is that it is only through elementary knowledge which can transform the life of a person. So what we see is happening here is that Narad Muni, out of kindness, delivered lecture and knowledge to this king. Naradji said, "Oh dear king, you have been actively engaged in the material life at this place. Material life is very much influential over here. Must you come along with me?" So Naradji took this king underneath a tree at a place within this location. So the place where Naradji took was within this Gautam Deep, but where not many people frequented. So Naradji goes on to say, "O king, your days which are passing by are just going useless. You only have the worry and tension of the wealth in your mind and heart. How much do you need to worry more?" Naraji continues further. Naraji says, "O king, consider this earth as unearth. This wealth is actually meaningless. It might appear apparently sweet, but the fact is, sweetness beyond a point actually becomes dangerous. No doubt that wealth or money is needed, but more than what you need, in excess of what you need, also becomes a reason for destruction. So anything that you have beyond what you need, beyond your requirements, actually becomes reason for destruction. So dear devotees, just in case if you are attempting to earn more than what you need and your requirements, it becomes problematic. And if you've earned beyond your requirements, you must engage your wealth for a true sattvic purpose. So Naraji goes on to tell the king, "Oh dear king, forget about wealth and economics. You must now engage yourself in pure devotional service, and that you should engage in Param Arth." What is Param Arth? Divine knowledge. And divine knowledge is much more than Param Arth.
इस परम अर्थ दिव्य ज्ञान को ग्रहण करो। और बात रही अपनी पत्नी और पुत्रों की, तो दारा पुत्र बंधु जन केह नहे निज जन। क्षमा कर कीजिएगा राजन, लेकिन ये पत्नी पुत्र बंधु बांधव ये न तो किसी के हुए हैं न
Dear King, all the relations that you might have in this life actually would be of no use once you leave this material world. They have never helped anyone beyond this material world, nor shall they do.
मरने तक भी राह नहीं देखते, लेकिन मरने के बाद कौन साथ में आने वाला है महाराज? महाराज ये मनुष्य जीवन बहुत अमूल्य है। तुम्हार मरण हईले, जब तुम्हारी मृत्यु होगी तो देहटी भाषाये जले, तो तुम्हारे शरीर को जलाए, तुम हिंदू हो, शरीर को जलाया जाएगा और उसकी जो भाषा होगी, उसकी जो माटी होगी, तुम्हारे घर वाले उस माटी को गंगा में पधरा देंगे और घर जाकर बस अपने काम में लग जाएंगे, तुमको कोई याद नहीं करने वाला। जब तुम्हारे शरीर की माटी होगी उसको गंगा में पधरा।
goes on to say, once you leave this material body, these people will brood over only for some time and then they will forget you completely. So what kind of false hope are you cultivating as of now? Why are you engaged in unnecessary thought of multiplying your wealth? Naraji further goes on to say,
कि मैं सुखी होने के लिए और जीवन में न पाई दुख, या फिर जीवन में दुख न आए इसके लिए, therefore अतएव अर्थ चेष्टा करी, इसलिए मैं पैसों की चेष्टा कर रहा हूं।
the king says,
कि मैं सुखी होने के लिए और फ्यूचर में दुख।
Imagine if the king would have replied Naraji something like this, that in order to be happy in life, in order to be free from all worries, I am engaged in this generation and gathering of wealth.
Total mithya soch.
So on this, perhaps Naraji would have replied that, O king, your hopes and your thoughts are misplaced. O king, these are all complete false hopes. You won't stay alive over 100 years anyhow. Imagine if we were to live 100 years, then almost 50 years is over. Now, what is left is 50 years. Do you believe that we can continue for those 50 years? There is so much of COVID, pollution, fights, and also the wars which are going on. So personally, I feel, dear devotees, perhaps 70 to 80 is maximum that we can stay alive.
और उस 20-30 साल का भी क्या भरोसा, इसलिए जीवन बहुत कम, मनुष्य जीवन आसानी से नहीं मिलता। यदि ये मनुष्य जीवन चूक गए तो 84 के चक्र में फंसेंगे। पुनरपि जन्मम पुनरपि जननम, कभी गाय बैल गधा कुत्ता।
So just in case if we do not understand the real purpose of this life, we would always take birth and die again and again in the cycle of death and birth. So, oh dear king, do not waste your wonderful years of your life uselessly. This life is immensely significant. Make use of it. O dear king, must you engage in understanding the real meaning of this life? The real meaning of life is to move beyond the influence of Maya. And if somebody has gone beyond the influence of Maya, for him, the question of being happy or sad is actually useless and baseless. If one engages himself in pure devotional service, that person will never get to have any displeasure or unhappiness. So, just in case if you can free yourself from this world which is full of illusion,
तब राजा ने कहा तो ठीक है, तो मैं क्या करूं, वैराग्य ले लूं, ये सब कुछ छोड़ छाड़ कर भगवा पहन लूं। नारद जी ने उसमें भी बहुत सुंदर बात कही।
So the king perhaps said that, oh Naraji, what should I do? Should I go on to become a sannyasi? Then Naraji said something like this. The king said, oh dear Muni, what do I do? Should I go on to take saffron? But the fact is, just becoming a recluse does not mean that you will achieve the Lord. So, Vairag is just one step towards the Lord. You see, the highest of the Vairagis are these animals, no clothes, no relations, no houses. Imagine the trees. But have they realized God? And the answer is not. So just by Vairagya or just by seeking knowledge, one cannot achieve and realize God. So just by knowledge and Vairagya alone, one cannot get Bhagvatam. Vairagya and Gyan only unties the material attachment. So Vairagya and knowledge only unties your material attachment ties. So a person gets liberation, which is sayuj, that he engages in Lord. Nityanand Prabhu goes on to say further that sayuj mukti is no pleasure at all. So you see, there are many sects in this world today, and they engage themselves as to merge themselves with Lord one day. And this is also possible, but there is no fun, no happiness in this kind of belief. If Jivatma goes on to immerse himself in Paramatma, then neither of the two would be happy.
केवल ये नितांत धिक्कार, केवल ये को तो धिक्कार है, सायुज्य मुक्ति को तो मतलब कितना बड़ा समाज ध्यानियों का जो केवल ये के लिए
imagine there is so much of so many people in this world who want to actually go on to merge himself in Paramatma, but Nityanand Prabhu goes on to look upon this kind of thought as a very inferior thought. For example, it is like, the parents give birth to a child, and then after the child has become of an age, the child goes on to say that I want to go back into you. Now, don't you think the parents will be frightened and terrified? These parents would perhaps say that what this child is saying. We went on to create this child so that he can offer us some services at some point of time. But how come this child is having the desire to go and to merge himself with the parents? So Lord has given birth to soul, and now the soul actually wants to engage in super soul completely. So what is the dharma of Atma? And the dharma of this Atma is to offer services to the super soul. So in this situation, both Atma and Paramatma become happy. So knowledge and Gyan offers only Sayuja Mukti, and which does not bring happiness neither to the devotee nor to the Lord. So such system is not worth appreciation. Now let us focus upon the third line. Hence, O king, must you not go around knowledge and being recluse. So, O dear king, what you should do is, so people like you and those who do have real knowledge, those who have high patience, a real knowledgeable person does not have desire bhukti or mukti. These are demonic in nature. Till the time you have desire bhakti and mukti, you cannot get the pleasure of devotion service. You cannot fully enjoy devotional service so long as you have this desire of bhakti, bhukti and mukti. So those who have good patience engage themselves in Krishna bhakti. Those who have good control over themselves must engage in devotional service towards Lord Krishna. They engage themselves towards devotional service for the Lord.
और विषय भोगों के प्रति उनकी अनासक्ति ऑटोमेटिक हो जाती है. कैसे?
And you see, they automatically get detached towards material pursuits. It so happens because those who have developed attachment towards the lotus feet of Sri Krishna would entangle all his attachments towards the material world. This is the real duty of the jeev, of the entity, living entity. So you see, Nityanand Prabhu has given us very wonderful principle. So if I was to ask you, how many Vedas do we have? Rig Ved, Atharved, Samved, Yajurved. Purans are 18 in number, while we have Upanishads almost over 100. All this set of literature, if you look at from technical point of view, then they just talk about three things precisely. Now imagine what is the number of shastras that we have. What do they want to express? What do they want to explain? And these are precisely three things that they want to convey. And what are those three things? Those three things are being explained by Nityanand Prabhu in the form of shloka before you. Let us focus on the third line. This is being said by Nityanand Prabhu.
सबंदा विधेय प्रयोजना. सारे वेद शास्त्र ये तीन चीज.
All the Vedas and Shastras just talk about three things basically.
एक्चुअली ये शास्त्र क्या मैसेज देना चाहता है इस कथा.
So you see, we must attempt to know what these Shastras are trying to tell us. Let's focus on the fourth line. What does it say?
बने हैं और तीन मैसेज ही हमको बताना, लेकिन हमको सीधा सीधा पल्ले पड़ता नहीं, इसलिए बेचारे ने कथाओं के माध्यम से, इतिहास के माध्यम से आखिर तो ये तीन चीज ही बताना चाहते हैं। क्या बताना चाहते हैं? संबंध, जीव का भगवान से संबंध क्या है।
So the three things that they talk about is what is the relationship between the living entity and the Lord.
इसके विषय में और आगे इसको क्लियर कहते हैं, जीव का भगवान से संबंध क्या है।
So let us elaborate upon it. What is the relationship of the living entity with the Lord?
सर्वनाश भक्ति वृक्ष फले प्रेम फला। जीव का भगवान के साथ संबंध क्या है? जीवेर से
the relationship of the living entity with the Lord, and that relationship is that living entity is the slave of the Lord. But you see, this simple thing is not being understood by people, and even if somebody understands, then does not engage in actually realizing it. You see, many of us do keep on saying that we are dasanu, 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 das. We do say this, but then there is no realization. Rather, what they say that they are bosanu, 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 bos. But when we write a letter, what do we say? We are dasanu, 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 das. Slave of the slave of the slave of the slave. So what is the nature of the living entity? That the living entity is the slave of the Lord. But unfortunately, this simple thing is not being comprehended and understood by people. We do say that we are slave, but then the moment we get out of our devotional service and spiritual world, we start ordering and bossing around. So once we have understood the relationship, then what should be the path? And what is that path? That a life without bhakti is nothing but a path of destruction. So the objective is to engage in devotional service. Bhagavad Bhakti is the objective. So once we've known the relationship, once when we have understood what we need to do, and finally what is the ultimate objective, what is that ultimate objective? Krishna's prem. So relationship, the process, and the objective. The relationship is that the living entity is eternal servant of the Lord. And the real karma of the individual is bhakti. And what is the objective? The objective is to attain the love of the Lord. These three things are essence of all the Shastras. Nityanand Prabhu has said everything in just one shloka. Just in case if we are able to establish this, then you see everything is done. So actually we should have that kind of realization and we should live the rest of our life on that principle. And that is what actually we should be doing. So you see, liberation itself becomes the slave of the devotee.
मुक्ति मुझे ले लो, मुक्ति कहती है कि भक्त मुझे
Mukti actually stands folded hand if you engage yourself in devotional service. So a real devotee does not ask for liberation, rather he asks for birth again and again so that he can engage himself in devotional service. But unfortunately, look at the unfortunate part of the life of the living entity. Now, Nityananda Prabhu goes on to explain situation of we people. Narad Muni is narrating the story to Krishna Sen, the king. But actually, this katha belongs to each one of us. This is the story of each one of us. So the shloka goes something like this, that Krishna is just like the sun. He is such Chidanand, and all this material wealth is just like the shadow of the Lord. And living entity is just an iota of it. So where is the place of living entity? So he stands between Maya and God. So the living entity stands midway to Lord and Maya. So he stays exactly at the center of the Lord and Maya. So now imagine a situation of the devotee, of the living entity. If this individual goes to make a move towards Maya, then this Maya will entangle him and he will move away from the Lord. Now, it is said that if an entity goes on to move towards Maya by distancing himself from Lord, now this living entity engages in too many activities. So this is nothing but the touch and entry of Maya. And you see, this is so strong that every person goes on to get entangled in the net of Maya. So you see, many a times each one of us say that it is because of the blessings of the Lord that we have got so much of benefit in business. So just in case if a person goes on to, keep on making an attempt to make 4 from 2 and from 4 to 16, this is nothing but actually the effect of illusion or Maya and not that of the Lord. So such a person actually has no liberation at all. And such a person is always in confusion and goes on from place to place. See, and the reason is that he has earned so much of wealth and there's a lot of attachment towards this Maya or wealth. And perhaps this wealth would come in the form of snake. So actually this is nothing but attachment towards the material pursuits. I always share this story that one person actually earned a lot of money. And he used to work in both the shifts. And you see, when one engages in such strong works, both the times, and you see, the body goes on for a toss, isn't it? So the person does earn a lot of money, but then he develops so many diseases bodily diseases come on to attack the body. And you see, as he leaves the body, he has desire of having some sweets. But then by that time, he has this desire. And you see, as Krishna says, that whatever thought you would have towards the last time, the same kind of body you shall have in the next birth. So if it is the Mataji, she would take the form of an ant or some small insect in the sweet box. You see, these Matajis have the nature that during the time of Diwali and all, you see, they have this desire of taking things on a discount. And as they come home, you see, what do they tell? They tell that, oh dear friend, must you visit that sale because huge discounts are going on. And this exactly is the nature of an ant that, oh dear friend, you must visit that box where there are a lot of sweets kept. So this is how these ants behave and conduct. So this exactly is the nature of these females, and the nature of males is like that of a makura, that he would sit all alone in that sweet box. He would never tell to anyone. Now, the daughter-in-law, in the morning when she would prepare the tea, and when she opened up the box of sugar, she is in full influence of sleep, so she does not even see that there is father-in-law sitting in the box and Achitam Keshwam of the father-in-law in the warm water. So Naraji tells that once you get to lose this material body of being a human, you need to travel in so many bodies: donkey, dog, monkey, etc., etc.
एक मच्छर था ना, उसका एक बेटा हुआ। मच्छर में भी
And there was a son to this mosquito. I'm sure there must be society of mosquitoes also. So there was this male and female who got married. They went for a honeymoon and then they were blessed with, you see, sun mosquito. Perhaps they might have thrown a party that they've got a mosquito son. Perhaps it would be called as mushroom. So perhaps as this kid mosquito gets to fly and comes back to home after having a flight of 2 hours,
जब मैं उड़ रहा था तो सब ताली बजा रहे थे।
how nice the world is, that as I was flying, everyone was clapping. Then the parents told him that they were not clapping, but rather making an attempt to kill you. You do not know how cruel the world is.
तो ये कभी-कभी ऐसा होता है। और हम देखो हमारे जीवन में हमारे लिए कोई ताली बजाए,
You see, in our own lives, if somebody is clapping for us, we must understand that this clapping is actually made an attempt to pull us down. You see, if we need to accept appreciation and acknowledgements,
ताली हमको गिराने वाली हो जाती है। तो कहीं इन तालियों को वास्तव में,
you see, these appreciation actually become reason for our decline or to pull ourselves down. So the point that I'm trying to get across is, because you are blessed with this material body of being a human, you must engage yourself in pure devotional service. Because you never know what shall be the next time you would get this opportunity. So you see, one would actually go on to pass through so many bodies to finally get the body of a human being. So actually one must engage in bhajan and kirtan as he comes across a devotee. So you see there's unending cycle of bodies to get the body of human being, and then you get the company of Vaishnavas if you are lucky. So you see, you do not even know when in your next birth, when you would be blessed with this human body, you shall get the company of pure Vaishnavas and devotees. So only when you get to have the company of devotees and Vaishnavas, you would develop belief and commitment. And that kind of devotion and dedication, you engage yourself in associating yourself with sadhus and sant. And this leads to development of bhajan vritti. And if one continues to stay on bhajan bhakti by having association of sadhus, then you see what happens.
और हृदय के अनर्थ जब दूर हो जाएंगे,
Whatever bad deeds and iniquities that you have in heart will get extinguished. And after this, there would be lot of devotion that would develop in our lives. So you would develop the desire and urge to serve the Lord and realize the Lord. Further, it is said in the shloka, if we engage ourselves in chanting the holy name and kirtan, and that is when a person develops obsession with the Lord. So the obsession that you experience towards this material world actually now fixes upon the Lord. So if you continue to engage in bhajan and kirtan, then you will develop that mood and mode.
क्रम के अनुसार,
And it is at this point of time you develop love and affection towards the Lord. It was in this manner
उपदेश दिया और
Shri Naradji went on to deliver a good sermon to the king. Naradji further said, "O dear king, the place where you stay is the place where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would appear in the age of Kali. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is very merciful. You must actually focus upon the name of the Lord. And if you do that, for sure you will be blessed." And you see, as the name of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came onto the mouth of Naradji, his own veena started playing by itself. So once it so happened that the king was sleeping. So while he was sleeping, so the king actually watched in his dream that it is at this place that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared and his body was shining just like a sheet of gold. So throughout the night, the king adored Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and the king's dream broke up as he woke up. And the king said, I watched in dream Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and that is the time when the king developed detachment. He abandoned everything and left for forests. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did appear before the king, exactly in the same image in which the king had watched Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his dream, was also before him in the forest. The king expressed his desire to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that he also wants to be a party to his Leela, to his pastime. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that I would appear in Godrum Deep in the age of Kali Yuga, and because you have engaged yourself in devotion towards me,
तुम बुद्धिमंत खान के रूप में प्रकट होंगे और स्पेशली तुम्हें मेरे चरणों की सेवा प्राप्त होगी, तुम मेरे चरणों की सेवा करोगे। तो ये राजा स्वर्णसेन
you would be actually offering the services at my lotus feet in the age of Kali. So this king actually appeared in the age of Kali Yuga and offer his services to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This exactly is the place which was the palace of Suvarnasen. And certain remains of the palace of Suvarnasen are actually also found. These are the architectural remains of Suvarnasen of the age of Kali Yuga.
उस महल के जो पिलर है, उस महल के कुछ अंश यहाँ पर पाए गए हैं। सो इस प्रकार,
and hence in this manner, in this Gautama Deep, Suvarnasen and his birth in the age of Kali Yuga, all thanks to Govind TV that we have been able to have these darshans. All glories to Shri Sarsen Maharaj, Narad Muni ki jai, Radha Krishna Bhagwan ki jai, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai.
इस प्रकार से यहाँ पर
In this manner,
और ऐसा कहा भी जाता है कि श्री चैतन्य महाप्रभु का
you see it is said that when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was married,
विवाह का सारा खर्च
the entire expenses of the marriage of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was borne by Buddhimant Khan. Buddhimant Khan is who? He is Raja Suvarnasen. In this Gautama Deep, there's a very beautiful place called as Harihar Kshetra. So what is this Harihar Kshetra? So this is exactly the place, just like Kashi, Vishwanath, Varanasi. You see, in Varanasi, only Lord Shiva, that is Har, stays. But here, both Hari and Har are found at this place. This is a very beautiful place, what is called as Harihar Kshetra. In the entire world, in the entire universe, you would be able to have this kind of vigraha, what we have in this temple. So there is a Shivlingam, where half of the Shivlingam is Lord Shiva and half is Vishnu.
और विष्णुश्च हृदये शिवः, ये हरिहर क्षेत्र जो आप देख रहे हो, और
this is Harihar Kshetra that you have on the screens before you.
प्रकृष्टवे एका प्रभेदेन अभिन्न भाति, क्योंकि दोनों एक दूसरे के हृदय में रहते हैं, इसलिए दोनों में कोई अंतर नहीं है.
So because both of them reside in each other's heart, and hence there is no difference between the two. Only the fickle-minded people get on to see difference between Hari and Har. There is no difference between Lord Vishnu and Lord Shiva. So we are moving close towards this Harihar temple, Let's see if we are fortunate to have the darshans. At this place, Lord Shiva and Devi Parvati, in order to materialize their desire, let us have the darshanams. We are very fortunate to have the darshans. Let us chant Om Namah Shivaya. All glories to Hari Har. So you see, half of it is Lord Shiva and the other half being Vishnu.
Namah Shivaya. So इस प्रकार से
In this manner, half Lord Shiva, half Hari. This particular temple that we have before us is on the banks of river Alaknanda. So this is the temple, and then nearby to it you see Alaknanda. So this is Alaknanda river. On the banks of river Alaknanda, both Hari and Har resides. Once it so happened that on the banks of river Alaknanda, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Gadadhar Pandit were taking a holy trip. So both Gadadhar Pandit and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were having a bath in this river, and they caught hold of a parrot. You see, everyone would want to be caught in the hands of the Lord. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually got hold of a parrot, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was quite happy looking at it. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recalled the past time. Imagine Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu addressing the parrot.
चैतन्य महाप्रभु क्या भाव हुआ शुकदेव गोस्वामी का शुकदेव शुक है ना तो शुक माने तोता बोले शुक
So Shuk means parrot. Oh Shuk, you are the son of Vedvyas. And the parrot said, yes. This was the place where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu got hold of this parrot. So this conversation actually happened exactly at this place. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu further said, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said to this parrot, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, you should speak Radha Krishna. The parrot said, Gaur Hari.
तो चलो राधा कृष्ण बोल गौर हरि चैतन्य महाप्रभु ने कहा कि यह वृंदावन है ये जो स्थान है ना ये वृंदावन से अभिन्न है
This place is Vrindavan. This is inseparable from Vrindavan, and because this is Vrindavan, so must you speak Radha Krishna. And the parrot says that Vrindavan has converted into Navdeep. So gone are the times of Radha Krishna. I would only utter Gaur Hari. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said further, look, I don't like if somebody takes the name of Gaur Hari. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I am feeling so annoyed. You must speak Radha Krishna. The parrot says, come what may you say, I would only speak Gaur Hari. Now, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is developing the angst that you should not speak my name, I am not the Lord. What does this indicate? So this indicates that devotees should not accept their appreciation and acknowledgements. So this pastime is happening over the banks of river Alaknanda. All glories to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Godrumti.
अब इससे थोड़ा हम आगे बढ़े तो एक बहुत सुंदर स्थान है जिसे कहते हैं देवपल्ली, जिसे कहते हैं नरसिंहपल्ली। इस स्थान की महिमा नित्यानंद प्रभु ने बहुत सुंदर रूप से बताई है। श्लोक समझ लीजिए क्योंकि ये आपको कहीं नहीं मिलेगा, इसे मैं गा कर सुना। प्रहलादेर दया करी हिरण्ये वधिया हरि, ये स्थान कोरिल विश्राम। ब्रह्मा आदि देव गण निज निज निकेतन, करी एक बसाइल ग्राम। सतयुग की बात है। सतयुग में प्रहलाद देर दया करी, प्रहलाद के ऊपर दया करके भगवान नरसिंह देव प्रकट हुए और हिरण्य वधिया करी, और हिरण्यकशिपु का वध कर दिया। और हिरण्यकशिपु का वध करने के बाद ये लोग गाड़ी में बैठे हैं, पहुंच रहे हैं, पहुंचने दीजिए। भाई गाड़ी में बैठे बैठे शूटिंग क्यों कर रहे हो, पहुंच कर करो, लेकिन करने दो। अच्छे देखो सरसों के खेत हैं, यहाँ बैठकर एक फोटो खिंचाते हैं। तो ये लोग जा रहे हैं, पहुंच रहे हैं। तो मैं ये कह रहा था, पहुंचने दीजिए, मैं एक श्लोक दिखा दूं। प्रहलाद दया करी हिरण्यावधि या हरि, यही स्थाने करिल विश्राम। इस स्थान पर भगवान नरसिंह देव ने इस स्थान पर विश्राम किया था। और यहां पर जो मंदाकिनी नदी बहती है, इस मंदाकिनी नदी में भगवान नरसिंह देव ने अपने दोनों हाथ को धोया था। हिरण्यकशिपु को मारने के बाद वो सब लहू लुहान हो चुका था, तो अपने हाथों को मंदाकिनी नदी में पखारा था। और जब भगवान नरसिंह देव यहां आकर, ये मंदाकिनी है, भगवान नरसिंह देव यहां आकर विश्राम किए और हिरण्यकशिपु को फाड़कर वो लहू लुहान से अपने हाथों को इस मंदाकिनी में धोए। भगवान नरसिंह देव ने सोचा कि अब यहीं पर रुक जाता हूं। भगवान नरसिंह देव के यहां रुकने के प्लान को देवता समझ गए और देवताओं ने कहा कि भगवान नरसिंह देव यहां रुकने वाले, चलो प्लॉट खरीद लो, भगवान के आजू बाजू में प्लॉट ले लो। अब श्लोक में ही लिखा है, देखो, ब्रह्मा आदि देवगण निज निज निकेतन करी एक बसाइल ग्राम। तो ब्रह्मा आदि देवता यहां पर प्लॉट ले लिए और सारे देवता यहां पर रहने लगे। तो यहां एक गांव ही बस गया। भगवान नरसिंह देव है, आजू बाजू में देवता रहते हैं, और इसलिए इस गांव का नाम हो गया देवपल्ली। नरसिम्हपल्ली और देवपल्ली। और ये जो मंदिर आप देख रहे हैं, इस मंदिर में भगवान नरसिम्ह देव का सतयुग का विग्रह है, स्वयंभू विग्रह, किसी के द्वारा बनाया हुआ नहीं। आज हम मंदिरों में जहां नरसिंह देव भगवान को देखते हैं तो वे हाथों से बनाए हुए हैं, लेकिन यहां पर जो विग्रह है स्वयंभू विग्रह है। और सौभाग्य है कि एटलीस्ट ये मंदिर जो है गवर्नमेंट के द्वारा हमारे इस्कॉन को प्राप्त हुआ है। सो हमारे इस्कॉन
The Vigraha of Narsimha Dev Ji is a Swambhu Vigraha of the age of Satyug.
तो आइए भगवान नरसिंह देव का देखो, इस नदी में, ये मंदाकिनी नदी है, यहाँ पर भगवान नरसिंह देव ने हाथ धोए थे हिरण्यकशिपु का वध करने के बाद। जो
Shri Narsimha Dev Ji washed his hands at this place after killing Hiranyakashipu.
अद्भुत यात्रा हो रही है, आनंद आनंद हो गया आज तो है।
What a wonderful, blissful experience it is. Let us have darshans of Narsimha Dev Ji and offer our obeisances to him through Narsingh mantra.
उग्रं वीरं महाविष्णु ज्वलन्तं सर्वतोमुखं नरसिंहा भीषणं भद्रं मृत्युर्मृत्युनमाम्यहम् तव करकमलवरे नखाम् अद्भुत श्रृंगार दलिता हिरण्यकशि जय हो को।
This is exactly is the Vigraha of Narsimha Dev Ji.
जय जगदीश हरे, जय जगदीश हरे, जय जगदीश हरे, जय केशवधृता नरसिंह रूपा, जय जगदीश हरे, जय जगदीश हरे, जय जगदीश हरे। नरसिंह देव जय नरसिंह देव, नरसिंह देव जय नरसिंह देव। प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज, प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज। श्री नरसिंह देव भगवान।
All glories to Narsimha Dev Ji.
भगवान नरसिंह देव हम सभी भक्तों के जीवन में
I wish and I hope and pray that Lord Narsimha Dev kills all the problems and challenges in our lives. Lord Narsimha Dev Ji kill all the problems and challenges in our spiritual life.
परिक्रमा के अंतिम स्थान की ओर हम सब आगे बढ़ें।
Let us now move to the last destination of our Gotrup-Deep. I know I am crossing over time, but what do I do? But I need to complete with honesty. So I actually want to do it with a lot of honesty. The last place is, this actually is the place where, which is considered as Ramanareti of Vrindavan. Just as we have Ramanareti in Vrindavan, Similarly, in Navdeep Dham, at Godramdeep, we have Ramanareti. So the story goes something like this. So just as Lord Krishna would take the cows for grazing, similarly Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would engage in kirtan here in Godramdeep. So after having the meals, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, along with his associates and friends, used to engage in kirtan. So one of the commentators said, the Vanar of Tretayu and the cowherd boy of Dwapar. So the Vanar of Treta and the cowherd of Dwapar and the same person became a saint in Kali Yuga with tilak, mala, and the beads in the hands. So you see the influence, the impressions of the previous births stay in the current birth also, and that is the reason Chaitanya Mahaprabhu keep on dancing. So one is like with the sight of the water, you jump into the waters. So actually he jumps into the water. So taking a dip, these are actually the remains of Gwal Bal, right? And as you see the kirtan, the devotee engages in dancing. So these are the remains of being a Vanar in Treta. And in the age of Kali Yuga, he became the saint. So in extreme devotional kirtan and dancing, there was a cowherd boy whose name was Bhim. So this Bhim was also just like the Bhim of Pandavas. So you see, this Bhim actually said, "Oh, dear, stop." And everyone stopped and halted. Bhim asked, "Is your mother Shakshi?" And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Yes." She used to stay at that place before marriage. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said yes, replied in affirmative. Bhim further asked, "Have you heard of my mother called Shama?" Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "No." Bhim further said that my mother Shama considers your mother Shakshi as a mother and has offered huge devotions and has offered huge services to your mother. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said in positive that he has heard of it. So in case my mother considers your mother as her mother, then what is the relationship of you and me? So you're actually my nephew. So actually I happen to be your nephew and you are my mama. So you are my mama and I'm your nephew. So now Mamaji, I offer you to come to my home which is just nearby. So you see how nicely he has established a principle that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will not agree in a simple, straightforward manner. So he has attempted to establish a relationship first and then asked him to come to his home. And the relationship was that Bhim is the nephew and must you come to my home. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that he had just taken meal, to which Bhim replied that because you have done kirtan and dancing, so you must be feeling hungry, must you come to my home? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went with his associate and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did wonderful kirtan over there and had sumptuous prasadam. After having, you see, the prasadam, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was just having a stroll walk, a brisk walk, and this exactly is the place. You see,
ये गोरदा है।
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu just taking a brisk walk after the meals, after prasadam. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his brisk walk, came across a lake. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, just as he had a sight of the lake, removed his dhoti and in his gamcha, wanted to go for a dip. But Bhim said, "Oh, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, should you halt for a while and should not take a dip?" And this Bhim said, "Oh, Mahaprabhu, there is a crocodile in this lake and it is so ferocious that even we can't go over there, not even an animal. Even if a Gaumata goes on to have water, the crocodile catches hold of Gaumata and kills Gaumata." Chaitanya Mahaprabhu perhaps have contemplated that I'm here on this earth and these people are under the threat of a crocodile. Now, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu must have thought that I'm in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's form, I cannot pick up Sudarshan. So the only weapon that he had, the only weapon Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had at that point of time was Shravan and Kirtan. So you see, if you have somebody who is a nagging person besides you, you should engage so much in Kirtan and Vaishnav that the person actually goes on to leave the place out of frustration. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu now engaged in wonderful ecstatic Kirtan. Crocodile came out of the lake, and this crocodile took the form of four-handed person and reached the Vaikunt. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked this crocodile that why are you troubling people over here? He said, the crocodile replied, that I have been cursed by Durvasa Rishi because I had cut the shikha of sleeping Durvasa Rishi. So Durvasa Rishi had cursed me to be a crocodile. And when I took the surrender of his lotus feet, then he said that I would be the crocodile of Godrum lake, and when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would come and do kirtan over here, that is the time when you will be liberated. So this brings us close to our darshan of Godrum Deep. So this is the 6th day Katha, and we have reached Godrum Deep. So we will have a stay at Godrum Deep, and tomorrow we will start off with Madhya Deep. I extend my thanks to each one of the devotees out here. Nalini Maharaj Mataji from Melbourne, Australia, the great devotee of Radha Girdhari ji, and from Baltimore, America, Surbhi Mataji.
इसी प्रकार से बने रहिए, सारे दीपों की यात्रा करेंगे, जीवन को मंगलमय करेंगे। आइए जय जयकार।
Let us now bring a close to 6th day Katha, and I thank each one of the devotees who